Hi everybody, this is Steve Ludwig, host of Steve Ludwig's Classic Pop Culture and the Beatles Hour with Steve Ludwig at PlanetLudwig.com. Here's an interview we did with Nina Blackwood, one of the original MTV VJs, on September 17th, 2013, show number 7. To hear the entire show complete with music and retro commercials, check out the menu at PlanetLudwig.com. And now, please enjoy the interview. And we are so lucky and so privileged to have as our next guest one of the original 5 legendary MTV VJs from back in the 80s. Our guest host on Sirius XM, Miss Nina Blackwood. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Steve. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Good, very good.
I'll tell you, I'm so excited about your new book. It came out in May, but VJ, The Unplugged Adventures of MTV's First Wave, which you co-wrote with your surviving, that's terrible to hear that, but your surviving MTV VJs. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the book, and then I have my whole list of questions for you.
Well, basically, it's as you said, it's an oral history of our perspective of the beginning days of MTV and while we were there, which is a unique perspective because nobody else was seeing it the way we were, or going through the experiences that we were going through. So and we wrote it with a great guy, Gavin Edwards, who writes for Rolling Stone and also has written other books. And it was really, I call it a trip because it was, my body was elsewhere, but my mind was back in those early days. So it was quite something.
I'll tell you, I love the way it was written. It's as if I were sitting with you guys just in a living room on the couch, and it was one of those books that I hated when it ended because it just could have gone on forever and ever. And it's your reminiscences are just wonderful.
Oh, I'm glad you like it. Yeah, well, I think that's why we decided to do it as an oral history because I know Mark and Alan they wanted to do it a little bit more literal, and I was really fighting to do the oral history because it captured our voices, because it is our voices, and I thought, I really felt that that's what people would want, and I know when I was reading it, I could hear Mark's voice, I could hear Martha's voice, and it was the better way to express our personalities, and the 4 of us looking at the same thing, but in a different way, with different eyes.
Yeah, I think it was a great decision to write it this way. It just, like I said, I hated to put it down, at night and then pick it up the next day. I read it in a few days and it was just, it's over. I can't believe it's over. But you are now a New York Times best-selling author. That's got to feel pretty good.
I was so excited because, before I was a VJ, since I was young, I always wanted to do a book on something. I never knew I was going to be a VJ. And so that day when we found out that it hit the bestseller list, I swear my feet didn't even touch the ground. I was flying around my house. I was so excited. It was like, I can't believe it. It was very cool. Gavin did a great job of putting it together. He really did the heavy lifting. He really did. So he is owed a great deal of the credit.
But I agree with you. But you guys were just so darn honest. I mean, there isn't too much that you held back, and we, the readers, appreciate that. But that must have been kind of cathartic for you, no?
Well, I'm a pretty private person, and God bless JJ. We've been like family for now over 30 years, and I think what it did, doing this book, made us, if it's even possible, we didn't think it would be, but even closer. We each found out little things about each other that we didn't even know about by doing this book. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, I think it even bonded us closer. which is a great thing.
Yeah, you mentioned the late J.J. Jackson.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? What are your remembrances of him? He seemed like such a nice guy from what I read in the book.
He was. He sincerely was. Very warm, golden-hearted man. He'd see, if you were a girl, he'd come in, in the morning, the afternoon, and he'd just grab you and give you a big kiss and a hug. He just was full of love. He really was. And that fact was so proved when he did pass in the service, was out in L.A. I mean, he had people from the local drugstore and the local stores that he would patronize to people like Rod Stewart and everybody in between. It was packed to the rafters, all these people that loved him on all different levels. He just radiated love. He really did. And that, if he were alive, we would be saying that. It's not because he passed.
Sure.
That's what the man was,
Yeah, I know in the book you said, you did, and as you just articulated here, J.J. Jackson treated everyone the same, regardless of social status, anything. He was just a real person, wasn't he?
He was a really cool guy, and he was, he was our father figure because he was we never really knew how old he was. We just knew that he was a lot older than we were. And so he had that, that kind of godfather thing about him, and he loved, by the way, The Sopranos, and he was hanging with those people in there. That was after MTV, but Reedy was really into that. But he had that vibe about him, like just the padre, Capo di tutti capi.
Before we go any further, may I wish you a happy belated birthday? You celebrated a birthday last week.
Oh, I did. Yes.
Congratulations on another year.
What?
I said congratulations on another year.
Yeah.
I do want to let everyone know your website is ninablackwood.net. I went on the website. It's such a really nice website. If I may, Nina, as a fellow animal lover, you mentioned in the book the Wildlife Waste Station and your friend Martine Collette. Could you talk a little bit about, first of all, your love of animals and the whole Wildlife Waste Station?
Yes, I've known, in fact, she was one of the people I dedicated the book to because she is my hero. I love Martine, and I've known Martine since like 1979, excuse me, when I first moved to L.A. She was one of the first people, a fellow voiceover artist, Gretchen Weiler, who's also an animal activist, actually. She says, I have somebody that you have to meet, and I went up and I met Martine, and here's this beautiful woman with basically, those high moccasins, a suede bikini on. She's not a show-off, but she very, very like in the bush type of thing with a gun strapped around. She was a no-nonsense woman, and the wonderful things that she has done to help animals. Unfortunately, their needs, we need, I should say, a place like the Wildlife Waste Station. I wish we didn't, but we do, and she's there to take care of all the lions, tigers, the bears, raccoons, ostriches, whatever, the chimps, a lot of chimps that were used, sadly, for laboratory experiments. She's rescued them, and I love her, and I love what she does, and like yourself, huge animal lover, and have been since I was a little kid.
Yeah, I mean, whomever follows you on Facebook will be quite aware of how much you love animals, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yes, they will. I have the professional site that I don't even go to. My manager runs that, right? With all what I'm doing and everything like that. And I said to him, I go, I want to do my own, and it's all animals. Architecture, art, and beautiful places. So I created this little Facebook, Nina world, I guess that and no haters are allowed.
No, there's no room for haters. I agree with you.
No, it's all love.
Yeah, fans of Nina Blackwood know this, but for some of our younger listeners, you are a trained actor at the Strasberg Institute. You're an accomplished harpist and pianist. And something I found out from reading your bio, you had a part in Spinal Tap all secured, but then you got the call from MTV. That's pretty accurate, right?
Well, not really. I actually did the pilot of Spinal Tap because at the time, and I guess that must have been 80, Rob Reiner and the guys, all the Christopher Guest, they weren't sure if it was going to be something for TV or a movie. So I actually did the pilot with them, which was our lunch break, you couldn't even eat without choking because all you were doing was laughing. You can imagine sitting around with those guys, how funny it was. And so then when they went to do the movie, no, I wasn't available. But the really weird thing is that after the movie came out, they came to MTV for an interview, and I did the interview, and it was just the most surreal situation. It's like, because as you see the movie, they were all in character when they did the interview, and I go, this is just too much. This is really bizarre. So it was a brilliant movie. What's very funny, and maybe you know this, but a lot of rockers didn't think it was funny at all, because it was a little too close to home.
Right? Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of it. Now, you became interested in the harp as a young child, or at least as a teenager. How did your love of the harp come about? I mean,
Well, I always played music. I started piano when I was 4, and my piano teacher's daughter, Susan, one of my piano teachers, was also a friend of mine. She was like my best friend, and she was a harpist. And when I'd go, we'd have girls' night, and I'd go over to her house, and I'd always, be intrigued by her harp, and I would start playing it, and that really is what sparked my interest. And there was actually a waiting list. There might still be, but a 2-year waiting list to get a harp. So you actually had to be committed to an instrument that you didn't have yet, and they're quite expensive. So my parents, bless their hearts, because they knew that I wasn't the type of person that was flighty and that, I want to, pick up piccolo and then would never play it. So for 2 years, I rented a little harp from my harp teacher, and then I got my big harp, and there you go. And I was basically making, I always call it was my day job, although it was at night before MTV. That's how I made the brunt of my living when I was out in Los Angeles starting, with the acting career and all that kind of stuff. But that was my steady gig.
Yeah, Nina, I look at MTV, or the real MTV, your MTV days. I'm of the age
MTV, the
where
one that had
if you
music,
listen to the 60s radio, you could hear in the top 10 Frank Sinatra, the 1910 Fruit Gum Company, Ella Fitzgerald, all in the same top 10. And the early days of MTV, I kind of parallel that to 60s radio. You could hear all types of music in 1 hour on MTV. Were you guys aware of all the wide range of music
I think
you
that
covered?
was one of the really beautiful things about MTV. It was like a huge, big national radio station that wasn't so, now everything's so subdivided and narrow casting. I mean, you could hear, at the beginning, Martin Briley, then turn around and you'd have, like, Rod Stewart, and then you'd have, Duran Duran. I mean, it was kind of across the board, and then Madonna, and you got into the pop with Michael Jackson. And, it was great, and it exposed people, especially, like, in the coasts are a little further ahead, generally speaking, music-wise, the radio stations, but at that time, time, like Mid-America, don't hold your breath about having Duran Duran be on the radio, right?
Mm-hmm. No,
but then the
absolutely.
video, they'd see the video, the kids would go call the radio station, go to the record stores, where's Duran Duran? All of a sudden, boom, people in Nebraska are clamoring for Flock of Seagulls, for crying out loud.
So many musical acts owe their success to you and the rest of your MTV VJs. Now, our final minutes with Miss Nina Blackwood. Nina, thank you so much for staying with us. What I was saying was, with Live Aid, as far as I'm concerned, that was your baby. You outshone your other DJs, and I hope they don't take offense if they ever hear this, but you really took hold of that. And did you get the feeling, too, that, well, not that you aren't always at the top of the game, but that seemed to me one of your shining moments as a VJ. What are your memories of Live Aid?
That's nice of you to say. I really, really appreciate that. I know I took it very seriously. I know that, and I was, I remember I only left the stage where we had set up because I was so very professional about the whole thing. Like, I think once to go to the bathroom and at the same time snuck backstage for 2 seconds and came back. But I think we all, it's nice of you to say, but we all worked really hard on that day. It was just an incredible day, and I love live shows like that. I really do. Live radio, live performances. You can't beat it. The adrenaline's going, and you're just, you really do have to be on top of your game.
Well, I think I remember watching that live. My goodness, how did you hang in there for 17 hours?
Well, your adrenaline's going, and it was such a historic event that it was, it was just, I don't even think we thought about the time. In fact, I probably, unless, somebody had said like you, I didn't, it just kind of went right by. It was an amazing experience.
Well, Ms. Blackwood, I can't thank you enough for being on here. I have one last question. You and your fellow VJs had such a tremendous impact on people's lives. I mean, how do you deal with that? I mean, do you just kind of sit on the couch, maybe with a cup of tea some night, and say, you know what, for crying out loud, we really had the world in the palm of our hands?
No, I don't do that on a regular basis. But when we were writing the book, because we were reliving all those things, it was kind of like, wow, we got to do this, we got to do that. I got to fly on the, maiden voyage of Virgin Airways, hang out with Richard Branson, the first Farm Aid, Live Aid, so all those things were coming back, and it was like, wow. But at the time, it was our job. So we were going from one thing to another, to another, to another. So it really was reflecting on it that, God, we were so lucky, as it was just such a cool job,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough. Once again, everyone, it's VJ, The Unplugged Adventures of MTV's First Wave. And having spoken with you, I already know this, Nina, from your love of animals, but you are certainly one of the nicest people I've spoken to, and you're so kind to come on, and I just want to thank you so much.
Oh, well, that's nice. I think it's really cool that you thought of me, and I am very, very glad that you're an animal lover, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk about the Wildlife Way Station. People should, if they can, go online and find out more about it. It's in the Angeles National Forest out in California, but it's a great organization to support. It really, really is. And
what's great is we can hear you on Sirius XM Radio on the Big 80 on 8, Channel 8, all the time. So you're still with us, and we're so happy for that. Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate the time. It was our pleasure. Thank you so much, Nina. It was a pleasure speaking with you. All right, and you have a good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Bye now.